Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is James White. I'll be one of your hosts today. The topic today will be how to implement an ERP system in 90 days, and it's geared to electronics manufacturers. The presenter is going to be Betty Bray. She's our Fitrix Applications Product Manager and also Senior Project Manager. There will be a question and answer session at the end. You can submit your questions at any time during the webinar. Before Betty's presentation, I'm going to do a 4-minute introduction of Fitrix ERP. So Fitrix ERP, it's a 21-module end-to-end ERP software suite. It's designed for small and medium-sized manufacturers of electronics. All the modules are fully integrated. There's a consistent user interface, and Fitrix uses a state-of-the-art SQL relational database. These are the 11 manufacturing modules. Fitrix supports advanced and complex manufacturing requirements, also very easy to use if you don't need the advanced features, but it does both. Fitrix supports make-to-order, make-to-stock, engineer-to-order, job shop, and also mixed mode. Fitrix has a complete set of supply chain and distribution modules. The order entry supports high volume order entry. We've got customers with a lot of orders going through. It's good at that. There's an integrated CRM. And there's a full suite of accounting financial modules. And again, 21 modules total. Everything's fully integrated. It's a single technology, and there's a consistent consistent user interface. So Fitrix is specifically designed for the small and mid-sized electronics manufacturer. It's priced and packaged so that it's affordable, easy to implement. It's designed to grow with your business. We've got ERP customers with hundreds of users. Most are a lot smaller than that, but it scales. It's very easy to use. And today we will show you how to use our rapid implementation program to go live in 90 days. Fitrix also has a lot of key features that are required for electronics manufacturing. You see a list here. Deep serial number and lot tracking is needed almost in every case. Warranty tracking, quality, compliance. And here's some more features that we find are commonly needed in electronics manufacturing. Barcoding is critical. We have barcoding at each step along the way. Contract manufacturing is supported either as supplier or consumer. Blanket orders, approved vendor lists, credit management. So our company is 4th generation software. We're the makers of Fitrix ERP. We've been making and implementing ERP software for 27 years. We have a very high implementation success rate. The rapid implementation program you'll see in just a minute is part of that success. And our focus is on results, and we're focused on helping you succeed. Our customers also tell us that our support is way above average. Quick highlight of one of our customers, MCE. They're a contract manufacturer of high-end servers. Before they implemented Fitrix, they were actually doing a lot of their manufacturing process tracking on spreadsheets and by hand, and they hit the wall to where there was no way they could grow without a full ERP system. They've told us that within 6 months of implementing Fitrix, they have been able to cut their inventory cost in half. They were having to keep their inventory really high because of just the management issues. There's a great case study on MCE on the Fitrix website, so check that out if that's of interest. And now Betty Bray is going to reveal the secrets of our 90-day implementation program. Betty?
Thanks, James. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm sure all of you have heard at least one horror story from either business colleagues or friends about the fun they had implementing a new ERP software package, or maybe you've been through the process yourself. So today, we're going to talk about the steps that you can follow to have a successful implementation in 90 days. We'll be covering a lot of ground today, so we'll put a recording of this webinar on the Fitrix website so you can view it again at a later date if you need to. First, let's talk about the reasons you're probably wanting to implement a new ERP software package. You're probably trying to replace a system that just doesn't handle your business anymore. Your current business processes may not be automated. I've worked with companies that were literally tracking their business with Excel spreadsheets before implementing Fitrix. It could be a homegrown system written years ago that's no longer supported. If your business has changed, you may not be able to change or upgrade the software to handle those changes. Maybe you've outgrown the software. Maybe the number of licensed users is maxed out, or your processing just takes too long due to an increase in the number of transactions you're processing on a daily basis. Maybe it's just inefficient. Lots of times we see companies that are using more than one software package, one for manufacturing and distribution and another one for accounting. So you either need to figure out how to process your transactions across systems, or in some cases there could be double data entry, and that's just not efficient at all. Maybe you're not getting the information you need when you need it. Maybe you aren't able to give your customers timely information like when their orders are shipped. Perhaps you overstock your warehouse to make sure you don't run out of product, and that ties up your cash. So why do these implementations sometimes become nightmares? There's lots of reasons, and they can all be avoided. 53% of projects exceed the budget. This could be due to scope creep. It could be due to trying to convert data that's not clean. Maybe you have the wrong team leading the project. Maybe the team leading the project doesn't have enough time to dedicate to it. Maybe it's all of these reasons, and we'll dive into how to avoid these in just a bit. 61% of implementation projects take longer than planned. The same reasons you went over budget are the same reasons it took longer, plus there's a few more we'll cover. You didn't get the results you expected. People sometimes falsely assume that the new system is going to cure all of their problems, and it just doesn't work that way. So we'll talk about how to make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. All right, so how can a rapid implementation process help you? If you can set a firm date for your go live and keep your team focused for 90 days, it's much less disruptive than an implementation where the go live is open-ended. If your folks know that come March 1, they have to do their job using a new software, they'll really concentrate on evaluating and learning that new software. If you know the go live is in 90 days, the focus will be to do whatever it takes to get up and running. You're forced to stick with what's mission critical and move any nice-to-haves to a phase 2 once you've determined that there's not a better way to handle them in the new software. With a short 90-day window, you don't have to worry about employees being trained and then forgetting what they've learned before you go live. I've seen that a lot. There is no retraining effort needed. All right, so let's first talk about some ground rules before I take you through the implement process we use with our clients. You need to assemble the right team to lead the project, and I'll talk about more about this in just a bit. But it's also very important that once you assemble your team, if anyone on that team leaves or can't devote the time that's needed to your project, you need to address this immediately. I worked on a project a couple of years ago where the client had been using a homegrown system for years, and they realized that it just wasn't meeting all of their current needs, plus the person that wrote it and was supporting it wanted to retire. Well, initially she became the project manager, but then went into semi-retirement, moved out of state, and no longer had the time or desire to devote to the project. So the project took a turn for the worse. Things just weren't getting done. People weren't staying on task. So luckily we were able to identify one of their employees we'd been working with that knew a lot about their business as a whole, and we recommended him for the role. The owner took our advice. The employee loved the idea and took on the role, the PM role, and the project got back on track. Employee buy-in. This is very, very, very important. If the new ERP system is selected by someone in top management with no buy-in from your employees, they may resist it. You also need to have buy-in from everyone in top management. If employees think it's not important to have to their bosses, why should it be important to them? Why should they put in the extra effort to have the project be a success when they already have a full-time job to do? It's never wise to base your ERP selection on a vendor sales pitch. Instead, make sure it's based on a full requirements analysis and extensive software demos that include your key employees. They need to feel they're part of the process and see firsthand that the new software will make their jobs easier. Remember, they're the ones that are going to be using the software on a daily basis, so you really need to focus on getting user acceptance early on and have the support grow through the implementation cycle. Be open to change. My company is frequently hired to do what we call an in-depth needs analysis, and this is where we identify what our clients' requirements are if they can't or don't have the resources in-house to do this analysis themselves. So we'll meet with a key person in each department, and we'll review what their job duties are, how they use the current software to perform their jobs, and we do this by going through all the programs they use on a daily basis. What reporting is needed by reviewing all existing reports, month-end activities they're responsible for, have them define what their top goals for the new software are, and what does the current software system not do or not do well that they expect the new software to do. I can't count the number of times I've done one of these analyses and I've asked the question, why do you do it this way? And the response I get is, it's always been done this way. You really need to be open to change. Don't ask to have the new software modified to replicate how you do something today when there may be a better way to do it in the new software. Stick with what's mission critical. Don't try to tackle too many new things at once. Trust me, you're going to be on information overload as it is. For example, if you're not currently using a module like MRP, start without it. Wait until you're familiar with how all the other modules work. Define the scope and stick to it. This is a big one. One of the steps in our implementation process I'll talk about in just a bit is gap analysis. And this is where you compare your existing software to the new software and determine how things will be done and if there's any missing functionality. It's very important to keep the project scope limited to this analysis and save all the nice-to-haves that may come up in training for later after you've used new software for a while. Scope creep is the #1 cause for projects to run over in both cost and time. And lastly, review these rules throughout the project so you don't forget to enforce them. Okay, so now let's talk about the team you'll need to get through an implementation. You need a good project manager. So what defines a good project manager? This person needs to understand all aspects of your business. Someone that only understands, say, your accounting functions is not necessarily going to be a good project manager because they probably don't know what your other departments need. This person needs to possess good time management skills and be extremely organized. The ability to multitask is a must because they are going to be hit from all directions, trust me. This person needs to have the authority to make decisions and communicate those decisions in a timely manner. This is really needed to keep the project on track and on time. They need to make the implementation their top priority, and this can get really tricky since they already have a full-time job. Ideally, it would be best to have one employee 100% dedicated for 90 days if at all possible. They also need to be able to communicate with fellow employees and keep them on task. It's extremely common for people to wait until the last minute and then do the, oh my gosh, we're going live, mad dash. And finally, they must be willing to take responsibility for the success of the project. Your implementation team. This team really needs to include a key member from each department so you know every department's requirements will be addressed. The shop floor folks aren't going to know what your accounting folks need and vice versa. Your project manager will lead the way on the project, but you may want to break it down into other areas that need to be managed should it become too much for your PM to handle. And some of the areas I can think of include data conversion coordinator. I'll talk about the conversion process in just a bit, but this person will be responsible for things like making sure all the prerequisite data is in place and the data is mapped properly so the load files are clean. If there will be any manual data entry, they'll be charged with making sure this gets done correctly and on time. And they should also be responsible for ensuring accuracy of all the data by running comparison reports from both systems. System administrator. The sysadmin person will take care of things like making sure all users are set up on the system, that any menu or program security needed is in place before go live, that Fitrix can access your system remotely should any issues arise we need to look at for you, and that there's a proper backup methodology in place so you're never in danger of downtime or losing data. The training coordinator, this person will determine what classes are needed, who needs to be in what class, that the classroom is set up and the equipment's in place, and also confirm with each student their availability. The testing coordinator. This person will meet with each department and help develop a list of all processes that should be run through the new software. They'll also be responsible for making sure that the tests Fitrix provides before go live are completed by each employee. So now let's talk about the steps our clients follow to accomplish a 90-day implementation. The first step is to do a project kickoff meeting. In this meeting, we introduce the teams on both sides, and you select your PM if you haven't already done so. We go through our implementation plan document that covers things like hardware specs, sysadmin issues like security, backup methodology, who will be responsible for your network support. We lay out the training plan, whether training will be remote or on-site, which classes are needed, and how many students will be in each class. We'll also establish a tentative project timeline. Now, once the project actually starts, we use a couple of different tracking tools. One is an online service named Basecamp, and we use this to track the project milestones by responsible party. There's also an online to-do list that your company can view at any time during the project. We use Basecamp to also post and share any documents related to the project, so everyone's on the same page. We use an Excel template we've developed to track actual versus budgeted hours, so at any time you can easily see the financial impact the project is having on your company. We also review with you our customer expectations document, and this basically lays out what we're responsible for as your vendor and what we expect from you so that there's no unrealistic expectations on either side. All right, so once you have the hardware up and running and we can connect to your server, we install Fitrix. Then we'll assist you in setting up the key users on your core team so they too have access to the software. We'll then do the core team training. This training is a hands-on walkthrough of the standard software over the course of several days. The intent here is to get you familiar enough with it so you can then do the gap analysis that's needed. This walkthrough covers areas such as setting up master data like items, bills of material, customers, and vendors. We cover inventory management, sales management, purchasing management, production management, advanced planning and scheduling, and all the accounting functions and reporting, plus the month-end closing process. Also in month one, we'll cover data conversion planning. It's very important to plan in the early stages of your project what data you want to convert and what the effort and cost may be. Conversion is another area that can cause projects to go over budget and over time. Trust me, the old adage, garbage in and garbage out, can really come into play here. In Fitrix, we provide you with a full suite of import programs to handle the conversion. We have a data conversion user guide that lays out all of the data elements and all of the tables. There is some prerequisite data that you need to set up first. For example, if you don't have customer payment terms set up in the database, and you try and import your customers, you'll get an error that the customer payment terms are not valid because the program can't find them. So here's the process we follow. Assuming you have a way to get the data out of your existing software, you'll then need to export your data into a tab or comma delimited text files and map it column by column to the tables in Fitrix. Next, you load this data into a temporary holding area. If you receive any errors on the import report, you can then change the data in the holding area to get rid of these errors. And then you import the edited information into the Fitrix tables and review for accuracy. And lastly, you change the data in your load file so the next time you do a practice run, you don't get the same errors you received the first time. We provide you with a data conversion budgeting guide also, so you'll be able to see up front just what the effort will be on your end and what the cost may be if you need for us to assist you in any way. Using this guide, you identify what data you want to convert, the number of records, the number of years, whether you think your data needs some cleanup, and how many practice runs you want to do. You can then take this information and rank by data type whether the effort will be low, medium, or high, and then take this ranking to calculate the total number of hours it will take to convert the data. Your conversion effort may range from a few key tables like items, customers, vendors, and geo balances to a more full-blown effort that includes a lot more tables and historical transactions. The more data you want to convert, the greater the effort will be. There could be inconsistent data in your old system. The mapping can become a very tedious process. Plus, there may be some differences in the data structure between the two software packages that need to be addressed. Now, I've seen conversions range anywhere from 40 hours to 200 plus hours. Sometimes it makes more sense from a cost perspective to manually enter some of the data and maybe keep the old system up and running as a point of reference for historical transactions. But that's a decision you'll need to make once you determine the cost and the effort using our budgeting guide. All right, let's move on to month 2. It is absolutely critical you perform these next steps if you want your project to succeed. Gap analysis. I've mentioned this a couple of times already. Once your core team has gone through the initial software walkthrough, this is the step where they compare the functionality of both the old and new software packages and determine how the new software is going to handle your business. This is done through developing business use cases. This lays out things like how a new customer is set up, how sales orders and vendor purchase orders are processed, how production runs are scheduled and completed, basically all of the major functions in your business. Don't assume the new software does everything you need. It's going to be your responsibility to document exactly what's needed in terms of business requirements, functionality, screens and reporting, because no one knows your business better than you do. All right, so next you'll take these business cases and perform simulation test runs to make sure the results you get are what you expect. This will include things like entering customers, vendors, items, bills of material, processing a sales order from start to finish, processing a vendor purchase order from start to finish, processing work orders for the various mixed modes such as make to stock and make to order with routing and labor transactions, processing a make to order for a configurable item if you have any of those, running an MRP generation and releasing planned orders to both production and purchasing, entering inventory adjustments and physical counts, entering cash receipts, entering AP invoices and doing a check run, posting all of this activity to the general ledger and reviewing the results, running all available reporting to ensure Fitrix has everything you need, including all of your month-end reports. You'll also want to do some exception testing, like how product returns due to recalls, how will those be handled, how will warranties be tracked. The more real-life scenarios you can test, the better. Also in month 2, we'll do some practice data conversion runs using a temporary testing database. And we do this to work out all of the mapping issues between the two software packages and then also data validation by running comparison reports. All right, so once the analysis and test runs have been completed, your core team needs to meet to review the results and create a list of any missing functionality you may have found. Then you need to review this list with your Fitrix Project Manager to decide if modifications are needed, or maybe you just need further training. For instance, a process in your existing software may be handled a bit differently, but the end result is the same, so you really just need to adjust your procedures. If it turns out that you do need some modifications and what you need would be useful for our other clients, we'll add them to our standard product at little to no charge to you. This is called our feature program. Our goal here at Fitrix is to continually improve our product, and this is one of the many ways we accomplish this goal. I will warn you, if there are modifications needed, and depending on their complexity, this will often push the project out over 90 days. But any change in timeline will be determined once the effort's estimated and approved by you and your team. All right, let's move on to month 3. It's time for go live. So first we'll train the remaining users. This training will be done either on-site or remotely and can be done with our training data or your real data, whichever you prefer. This training is extremely important. If your people struggle with the software come go live, they may develop costly workarounds to get their job done, and that pretty much defeats the purpose of implementing a new software package to begin with. You really need to place a lot of emphasis on the importance of training with your employees. Go live preparation. There's several steps here. First, your team needs to decide on a date that works for everyone, and it has to be when no key people are out on vacation. You need to perform user acceptance testing. Basically, you want everyone to do a day in the life of their job to make sure they can do their job using the new software. Another important step is to do a load test while all the users are on the system, and we do this to make sure there aren't any performance issues. It would be terrible come day one and the system is so bogged down by the volume that you can't effectively do your jobs. We've developed modular test scripts that we deliver to you, and we expect each employee to complete these tests. For example, if you're responsible for processing work orders, you'll be given a test that includes entering a work order that has short components for both make-to-stock and make-to-order items, entering routing and labor charges associated with the work order, processing a PO for short components, printing the production packet, entering the production receipt and verifying inventory was updated correctly. If you process jobs, also doing these steps for made-to-order non-stock items like equipment repair. All right, so once the test scripts have been completed, we'll perform one-on-one readiness audits with your employees. And this is a series of questions we'll ask your employees to make sure they're ready for go live. We'll ask questions such as, what are your job responsibilities? Describe your typical day at work. Which test scripts were you assigned, and did you have any problems completing them? Have you confirmed that all the reports you need can be run in Fitrix? Do you have any end-of-day or end-of-month processes you run, and have you run them in Fitrix? What final steps do you need to do to get ready for go live? In your opinion, has everyone been trained properly? Do you have any concerns about the new software? After these interviews, if we're not confident that most of your folks are able to perform their job, we may recommend the go live be delayed and additional training take place. However, if you have followed this 90-day plan up to this point, everyone should be ready to go. Okay, go live. The day has come and you're ready to flip the switch. Transaction processing in the old system stops at an agreed upon time. The final data conversion is performed and balancing reports are run in both the old and new software for accounts receivable, accounts payable, inventory, work in process, and general ledger to make sure all the data transferred properly. We are on standby either on-site or remotely to help you with any issues that may come up. We'll also support you through your first month-end close. And lastly, after some time has passed, we'll do a recap of the project to make sure that we have met or exceeded all of your expectations and that the software is working as expected. All right, so let's do a recap of the process. You need to establish the project ground rules. You can use the ones we've discussed today, and you may think of a few more for your own project. It's important to review these throughout the implementation cycle to make sure you're adhering to them, because if you don't, your project's probably going to go off track. Assemble a competent team that has the time to devote to the project and is willing to take responsibility for its success. Decide on what data you need to convert early on so you know what the effort and cost will be. You may decide to convert less if it's time or cost prohibitive. Get your key people trained on the standard software so they know how it works and what it does. Develop your business use cases and do your test runs to make sure the software does everything you need. If it doesn't, consult with your software vendor to determine what mods are needed, or maybe you just need some additional training. Make sure everyone's up to speed on the software and can do their jobs. This is critical. This is done through training, user acceptance testing, and performing the readiness audit interviews. And if you're ready, do your final data conversion, verify the data is accurate by running your comparison reports in both systems, and go live. So that's how you implement in 90 days. As a reminder, if you'd like to see this webinar again, we'll have a recording of it posted on the Fitrix website later this month. Thanks very much for your time today, and best of luck with your software selection and your implementation.